What you're about to hear is not speculation, and it's not political theater. It is the beginning of what may become the fastest and most consequential impeachment process in modern American history. In a single day, more than 200 members of the U.S. House of Representatives took coordinated action against a former president who is also the leading candidate for the 2024 election. A move so serious that constitutional scholars are calling it the clearest case for disqualification since the Civil War. This isn't about past controversies. It's about newly revealed evidence, sworn testimony, and recorded material that lawmakers say fundamentally changes what the public understands about Donald Trump's actions after the 2020 election. I'm Richard Hale, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what triggered this extraordinary congressional response, what the evidence shows, and why this moment could permanently alter the future of American democracy. Stay with me, because once you see what lawmakers have now seen, it becomes impossible to look at this case the same way again. Before we begin, a quick note. If you value independent journalism, there's a support link below. Now, let's begin. The U.S. House of Representatives has just initiated what may become the quickest presidential impeachment in the nation's history. A total of 212 congressional members have signed a resolution calling for immediate impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump, marking the largest single-day congressional action against a former president who is also the leading Republican candidate for 2024. This isn't mere political grandstanding or election year maneuvering. It's a strategic legislative move supported by constitutional experts, former prosecutors, and even some Republicans who once worked under Trump. They're coming together over allegations so severe that legal authorities consider this the most straightforward case for disqualification under the 14th Amendment since the Civil War. When a retired federal judge breaks a 40-year silence to co-author the impeachment resolution with members who once defended Trump twice, the legal foundation supporting his candidacy appears to have crumbled. Subscribe now so you don't miss any updates. So, what sparked this extraordinary congressional move? According to the resolution introduced on February 3rd, the House members cite new evidence that Trump personally orchestrated a plan to submit fake electoral certificates to Congress, obstruct the transfer of classified documents to federal authorities, and later hinder the investigation into these actions by tampering with witnesses and destroying evidence. The resolution points to grand jury testimony unsealed last month, communications obtained through court-sanctioned searches, and sworn statements from 17 former White House staffers describing what they see as a systematic attempt to undermine constitutional processes. This isn't just another impeachment motivated by partisan disputes over January 6th or the Mar-a-Lago documents. Legal experts are calling this the most serious threat to democratic legitimacy since Watergate, with one major distinction. Trump isn't currently in office. This means Congress must act before the election to prevent someone they believe tried to overthrow the constitutional order from regaining power. And trust me, when two I-12 lawmakers risk their political futures on impeachment, knowing Trump leads Republican primary polls by 50 points, something monumental has surfaced that goes beyond usual political considerations. Here's the full rundown of what's been happening. Tensions have been rising since late January, when the House Oversight Committee got previously sealed grand jury materials from special counsel Jack Smith's investigation. But everything erupted on February 1st when Committee Chairman James Comer and Ranking Member Jamie Raskin held an unprecedented joint press conference announcing they had reviewed evidence that drastically changed their understanding of Trump's post-2020 actions. The evidence presented to the full House in a classified briefing on February 2nd reportedly includes audio recordings, encrypted communications recovered from devices seized under warrant, and financial records showing coordination between Trump associates and those who submitted fake electoral certificates in 7 states. According to representatives who attended the closed-door briefing, the material shows what they describe as premeditation and conspiracy rather than the spontaneous riot or document mishandling Trump's defenders have claimed. The classified presentation was conducted by former federal prosecutors and forensic accountants and lasted 6 hours, leaving members from both parties describing the evidence as overwhelming. Representative Adam Schiff, who attended the briefing, told reporters afterward that what they saw demonstrated a coordinated criminal conspiracy involving the former president, his legal team, and associates in multiple states to overturn the election through fraudulent means and then obstruct multiple federal investigations into that conduct. The evidence includes communication showing Trump personally directing which states should submit alternate certificates, financial transactions to individuals involved in the scheme, and recordings where Trump discusses hiding documents from his own lawyers to prevent their disclosure to federal authorities. What makes this particularly explosive is the nature of the new communications. According to Representative Zoe Lofgren, chair of the House Administration Committee, the recovered materials include recordings where Trump explicitly acknowledges he lost the election, but talks about using alternate electors anyway, describes the classified documents at Mar-a-Lago as leverage for future negotiations, and instructs associates on how to respond to federal subpoenas in ways that would hide his personal involvement. This wasn't about contested legal theories or claims of executive privilege. This was about evidence suggesting the former president knew his claims were false, pursued them anyway, and then systematically obstructed investigations when authorities began examining his conduct. Here's where things get truly serious. Within 24 hours of the classified briefing ending, Representative Jaime Rachin convened an emergency meeting of what he called constitutionally concerned members in a secure conference room. According to staffers who confirmed the gathering, 212 House members attended the meeting, including every Democrat and, surprisingly, 4 Republicans, Representatives Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Peter Meijer, and Denver Wellman. The meeting lasted 3 hours, and what happened inside, according to multiple members who later spoke publicly, was described as the most somber and consequential gathering of House members since the days following September 11th. Representative Rachin began the meeting by stating plainly, according to members who recounted his remarks, "We have just reviewed evidence that demonstrates the former president engaged in a coordinated criminal conspiracy to overturn a presidential election, obstructed federal investigations into that conspiracy, and continues to obstruct justice by influencing witnesses and destroying evidence. If we do not act, we establish a precedent that presidents can attempt coups and face no constitutional consequences. The Constitution provides a remedy. We must use it." The room fell silent. Representative Liz Cheney, who lost her primary after serving on the January 6th committee, reportedly stood and said, her voice measured but firm, according to witnesses, "Jaime is absolutely right. I've reviewed evidence the public hasn't seen. I've interviewed witnesses who described Trump's state of mind. This wasn't a president who believed he won and pursued legitimate legal remedies. This was a president who knew he lost and decided constitutional processes didn't apply to him. That's not a policy disagreement. That's someone who is fundamentally unfit for office under any definition of that term." According to members present, Cheney's statement crystallized the purpose of the gathering immediately. Representative Adam Kinzinger, who also served on the January 6th committee, reportedly added, "The evidence we've seen goes beyond what was public during the impeachment trial. There are recordings, there are financial records showing payments, there are witnesses who will testify under oath that Trump directed the fake elector scheme, knowing it was illegal, and then obstructed federal investigators when they started asking questions. If we don't act on this evidence, we're saying there's nothing a president can't do as long as he's out of office when we find out about it." By February 3rd, the group of 212 members had drafted a formal resolution demanding immediate impeachment proceedings, an extraordinary step given that Trump is no longer in office and is running for president again. But according to Representative Rachin, who explained the constitutional reasoning in a press conference, The Constitution provides no exception for former presidents seeking to return to office. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment explicitly disqualifies anyone who engaged in insurrection or gave aid and comfort to enemies of the Constitution from holding federal office. We are exercising our constitutional duty to prevent someone who attempted to overturn an election from holding the presidency again. The resolution released to the public at 6 p.m. on February 3rd contains 3 articles. Article 1 alleges conspiracy to defraud the United States, specifically charging that Trump did knowingly and willfully coordinate the submission of fraudulent electoral certificates to Congress in 7 states, despite knowing he had lost those states and that the certificates contained false information. Article 2 alleges obstruction of justice, charging that Trump did willfully retain classified documents, conceal them from his attorneys and federal investigators, and direct associates to delete security footage and lie to federal agents investigating the retention. Article 3 alleges witness tampering and obstruction of congressional proceedings, charging that Trump did attempt to influence witnesses testifying before the January 6th committee and before federal grand juries through public statements, private communications, and offers of financial assistance conditioned on their silence. But the truly devastating part of the impeachment resolution is what's included in the supporting appendix. The resolution references classified materials available only to members with appropriate clearances. However, the public portions quote extensively from unsealed grand jury testimony and judicially authorized recordings. One paragraph states, "On December 19, 2020, during a meeting at the White House, audio recordings revealed Trump told advisors we lost, but we're not going to admit that. Get the alternate electors ready in every state we're challenging. I don't care what the lawyers say about legality. We do it, and we fight it out later." Information corroborated by 3 witnesses present at the meeting. Another paragraph details obstruction. On June 2, 2022, surveillance footage recovered from Mar-a-Lago shows Trump personally directing staff member name, redacted to move boxes of documents to a storage area after Trump's attorney had certified to federal investigators that all classified materials had been returned. Footage that directly contradicts statements Trump made publicly and to investigators. This resolution sent shockwaves through Washington and fundamentally altered the 2024 presidential race when 212 House members formally demand impeachment of a former president who is leading in Republican primary polls, and when that resolution includes specific dates, recordings, and descriptions of conduct characterized as criminal conspiracy. The political calculation for Republican leadership becomes impossible. This isn't the first time Trump has faced impeachment calls while running for office, but the circumstances are fundamentally different. During previous impeachment efforts, Democrats led proceedings with limited Republican support. The charges involved conduct with disputed interpretations. Trump could claim partisan witch hunt and his base rallied around him. Now, it's completely different. This resolution has formal Republican co-sponsors who served in Trump's administration. The allegations involve concrete evidence, including audio recordings, not disputed testimony. The charges include conspiracy, obstruction, and witness tampering documented through judicially authorized surveillance. And the constitutional mechanism being invoked is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which requires only congressional action, not criminal conviction, to disqualify someone from office. The pattern is clear. Trump survived previous impeachments through partisan unity and by characterizing charges as political. But when evidence includes his own recorded voice discussing schemes he knew were illegal, financial records showing payments to co-conspirators, and surveillance footage contradicting his public statements, even partisan loyalty reaches its limits. Subscribe immediately if you haven't yet. This content doesn't exist anywhere else. So, what exactly triggered this massive congressional mobilization? According to representatives who have spoken publicly and legal experts familiar with the grand jury materials, Three specific pieces of evidence prove dispositive. First, audio recordings of Trump discussing the fake elector scheme. The Justice Department unsealed portions of grand jury testimony, revealing that investigators obtained recordings from December 2020 through January 2021, where Trump explicitly discusses creating alternate electoral certificates despite knowing he lost the states in question. According to Representative Jaime Rashin, who described the recordings in general terms, without revealing classified details, there are audio files where Trump explicitly states he knows the election results in specific states, acknowledges his legal team says the alternate elector plan is illegal, but directs associates to proceed anyway because we'll tie it up in court for years. The recordings reportedly include Trump using specific language about concealing the scheme from certain advisors who he feared would object on legal grounds. Second, financial records showing coordination and payment. Treasury Department financial crimes investigators traced wire transfers totaling $3.7 million between Trump-affiliated entities and individuals who participated in submitting fraudulent electoral certificates across 7 states during a 3-month period. According to Representative Dan Goldman, who formerly served as a federal prosecutor, the pattern is unmistakable. Fake certificates get submitted within days. Payments flow to participants. This pattern repeats in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, Nevada, and New Mexico. The financial investigation reportedly identified 23 separate payments that investigators concluded represented compensation for participation in the scheme. Here's the absolute kicker. The third piece of evidence involves surveillance footage from Mar-a-Lago that directly contradicts Trump's public statements and reveals obstruction. Security camera footage recovered under court order shows Trump personally supervising the movement of document boxes on 3 separate occasions after federal investigators had requested their return. One video segment from June 2, 2022, reportedly shows Trump directing staff to relocate boxes to a storage area, then shows those same boxes being moved again hours before Trump's attorney searched the property to comply with a federal subpoena. A separate audio recording from Trump's office captured by security systems reportedly includes Trump telling an associate, "We can't let them get these documents because they show I was personally involved in everything they're investigating." This surveillance evidence doesn't come from witnesses who might have credibility issues. It comes from Trump's own security systems capturing his conduct in real time. Don't go anywhere. The most explosive part is coming next. And here's what should alarm everyone, regardless of political affiliation. This isn't just about Trump or this specific alleged conduct. If a former president can coordinate a scheme to overturn an election, obstruct multiple federal investigations into that scheme, and face no constitutional consequences because he's running for office again, the entire system of accountability has effectively died. Once that precedent is established, future presidents of either party will understand they can attempt to remain in power through extra legal means as long as they leave office before being held accountable. The implications for democratic governance are catastrophic. This puts Trump in an absolutely impossible political and legal position. On one side, he faces impeachment proceedings that could trigger Section 3 disqualification, meaning courts could rule he's constitutionally ineligible for the presidency, regardless of primary results. That would make him the first presidential candidate in American history disqualified under constitutional provisions designed to prevent insurrectionists from holding office. On the other side, he confronts evidence that even Republican legal scholars describe as overwhelming, meaning denying the allegations becomes increasingly difficult as more recordings and surveillance footage emerge through court proceedings. And here's the impossible bind. If Trump claims he believed he won the election, he directly contradicts recordings where he acknowledges losing specific states. If he admits coordinating alternate electors but claims it was legal, he faces his own recorded statements acknowledging his lawyers said the scheme was illegal. If he denies obstructing the documents investigation, He confronts surveillance footage showing him personally directing the movement of boxes after federal requests. There's no defense strategy that addresses all three pieces of evidence simultaneously. Constitutional scholars and former officials are calling this the gravest threat to electoral legitimacy since the Civil War, and potentially more dangerous because it involves a former president seeking to return to power. Lawrence Tribe, Harvard constitutional law professor, stated in the Washington Post that if this evidence is proven in court, this represents the clearest case for Section 3 disqualification in American history. The 14th Amendment was designed precisely to prevent individuals who subverted constitutional processes from holding federal office again. This is exactly the scenario the framers of that amendment envisioned. Former federal Judge Michael Luttig, a conservative icon who testified before the January 6th committee, wrote in a legal brief supporting the impeachment resolution that the evidence described demonstrates Trump is constitutionally disqualified from the presidency under Section 3. He emphasized that the disqualification is self-executing, meaning Congress need not convict in an impeachment trial. If courts determine Trump engaged in insurrection or gave aid to enemies of the Constitution, he is automatically disqualified regardless of election results. Do me a favor and slam that like button because it genuinely helps this video reach more people. Even Republicans who have consistently defended Trump acknowledge the seriousness of these specific allegations. Former Attorney General William Barr, who served in Trump's administration and previously defended his conduct, told NBC News that if the recordings described in the resolution exist and contain the statements alleged, that would constitute clear evidence of criminal conspiracy and would make Trump unfit for office. No person, regardless of party, should excuse coordination of fraudulent electoral certificates while acknowledging such conduct is illegal. So, let's break down what this means. First, unprecedented constitutional crisis. The House is now moving toward impeachment proceedings against a candidate leading in presidential primary polls.